We're excited. We had some amazing days already at South Summit, and I'm super honored to be on stage here with amazing founders and Miami staples. So let's dive into it. The topic is building bridges between Madrid, Miami, and LATAM. And to give a little background for why I'm moderating this is because I'm at the Venture City, which is an early stage venture fund. We have more than 150 million under management and are based in Madrid, Miami, Sao Paulo, and SF. So we make investments in Europe, Europe and the US and LATAM. And so that's why it's really important for us to set up a network of global tech ventures. So now we're here with 3 of our portfolio companies, which I'm excited to show off to you. And I would like to just ask all of you to introduce yourself and also say what your connection is to either of those markets, Madrid, Miami, or LATAM.
Okay.
Starting with Juan.
All right, thank you. I'm the founder and CEO of Bupos. Bupos is a fintech company that provides financing to small businesses, and specifically for the purpose of acquiring small businesses. I would say like 95% of our customers are in the US. I started the company back in 2020. We started as a full remote company, which meant that we operated from Spain. I'm Spanish myself, and a part of the team was Spanish. And then over time, it became so natural because most of our clients, or all of our clients, were in the US, to kind of move there in a way. And I guess that we piggybacked on the Venture City's presence in Miami to open an office there.
Welcome. Okay, now to you.
Well, my name is Eyal. I'm the co-founder of Simply Road. We are a SaaS of smart logistics, B2B solution, for making better deliveries and better intelligence in the logistics. So we're based in South America, in Chile. That's why I'm here, right? And we are moving to Miami, so we can talk about it later.
Awesome, welcome. Matt.
Well, as a Miami person, I'm thrilled to hear you're coming to Miami. So my name's Matt Hagman. I lead an initiative called Opportunity Miami at the Miami-Dade Beacon Council, which is the economic development organization for the greater Miami area. But for being on this panel, what I really go back to is an effort that we started 10 years ago. I was at a foundation called Knight Foundation in Miami. And we launched a whole effort around building Miami's tech ecosystem, which at the time, like so many emerging ecosystems around the world, felt like this far-fetched idea. And actually been reflecting on that when we launched that effort and did things like bringing Endeavor to Miami as one example of an organization that might be familiar to many of you, and been sort of reflecting on the symmetry of Miami and Madrid, right? South Summit, of course, was started 10 years ago. 2 emerging ecosystems that now, as we sit here 10 years later, have really sort of established themselves in important ways, still early days, but thinking about sort of what's next and where do we go next as a community. And look forward to talking about those bridges that as we sort of think about that path forward for each of our cities. And along the way in our work and building and working to build the Miami ecosystem, Madrid has really been a part of it. I remember coming here for InCube, some of you may have gone to that conference, or through Endeavor having international selection panels, and now I think we have a real opportunity to further cement this relationship as 2 really important emerging ecosystems globally.
Awesome, welcome. Michel, over to you.
Thank you. My name is Michel, I'm the co-founder of Reloadly, originally from Miami, raised there for 35 years, and then started Reloadly in Barcelona in 2019. So it's been a good journey so far, and we raised our seed round from Spanish investors, and we still have a base in Miami, a small office in Doral with a small team.
Awesome. Well, it's very exciting for us as well to see this presence, and especially, Matt, like you said, there's been this movement in Miami, but now it's really coming to fruition. So amazing that our portfolio companies are taking advantage of this as well. We know that in Spain, actually, Q1 of this year was one of the biggest in terms of investment. It was, I think, almost 1 billion that was raised across like 100 deals. Would you say that as a European founder, now that there are still certain challenges, there's always this like, okay, we have investors and VCs from Silicon Valley or from the US. Like, what would you say as like a founder based in Madrid? Is there something like, we're Spanish founders, we're in this together? Or like, how is the perception in this market? Juan?
Well, I guess that it's still a challenge to be a European and raise money from American VCs. That's, I guess that's kind of slowly starting to change, given that most of the VCs after COVID are starting to kind of invest in companies of all around the world. So I see an improvement, but there's still a barrier in terms of operating there, in terms of raising funds from there, if you're kind of an outsider. So for us, kind of having at least a small group of angel investors, plus the Venture City, which is kind of a cross-border type of fund, is helping us a lot, kind of getting into the community there.
Right. And just to say, a few prominent angel investors, we know that Juan from Cabify is, for example, an angel investor who's also a portfolio company of ours. So I think that is great to know that there's like founders of different stages helping each other. Awesome. Then, Eyal, like you are based in Chile and are operating already in a lot of countries in LATAM. Now you're making a big push to the US. Like, how do you start thinking about expansion plans? Like, how do you plant the seeds if you want to go to the US, if you want to go to Europe? How do you do it?
So mainly when you're in LATAM and more in Chile, like it's really small market, right? So all the education of startup is, okay, when you start a startup in Chile and LATAM, you need to think about international expansion, right? From day one. Because if you're only focusing on small markets, you have no scalability, no expansion. Mm-hmm. So from day one, we were thinking about US, right? So it's like going north for us, right? We are really south, so it's going north. So what we did, we started at day one thinking about US. We went to 500 startups in Mountain View, right? Like for all the education and for raising money. So the first money we raised were from US investors. And then, so it was US investors, not interested mainly in LATAM, interested in US. So what we did is a plan, okay, let's go back to like home, to Chile, right? But let's think how we can get back to the US with the expansion. So we went like, of course, Chile, and we did Mexico, Argentina, Peru. Each country is a little bit different, right? You think about LATAM as a whole, but you need to like start thinking about each country. And then when you are ready, you can raise more money, right? And then you can, okay, I'm ready with the challenge, I can go back to the US.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, we're excited to continue the journey with you and follow your expansion. Michelle, you mentioned you're from Miami, but then you moved to Barcelona. How would you compare the markets, and like, why did you move? Like, was it also like having your company in mind? Was it like just personal reasons? Like, was it, you know, how did you decide that Spain and Miami would be a good setup for you?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I started my first company in Miami at the age of 22.
Wow.
And I was lucky enough to have ran that company for 12 years and sold it in 2015. And back then, there wasn't this hype of Miami and VCs. I know you were working hard, but when I had sold my first company, getting outside of Miami, personally, without the distraction of family and friends, and I was looking into Europe for work-life balance, and Spain, and particularly Barcelona, for me, had a lot of startup ecosystem that was very attractive, including the work-life balance and their environment and all that, and the cost to startup as well. So basically, you could do as much with half in terms of funding, to at least at the seed stage to get going. So that was a big reason why I decided to move to Spain.
Awesome. And then Matt, so you were just saying you've started 10 years ago with different organizations to really help founders set foot in Miami, but you're really an expert in making sure to think about all the resources they need, setting up, having conversations between the public and the private sector, building bridges. What exactly are the tools that you use in order to help those founders, similar to the ones that are sitting here?
Sure, absolutely. And I think, at the outset, so much of it is around they're actually practical barriers, but they're also psychological barriers. And I think in any emerging ecosystem, for so long, we've had just a few select centers of innovation. When you're coming from Latin America, you go to Mountain View when you're thinking about coming to the US. And in so many ways that presented even just a psychological barrier, just having the belief that there could be other places. I would argue now we've begun to move past that psychological barrier. We think that there are lots of places that we can grow and build companies, Miami being one of them, Madrid being one of them. But of course, to ultimately get to that, to move beyond those sort of psychological barriers, you need to show it, right? You need to show that a billion-dollar company, for example, can be built in Miami. And what's happened is both first trying to bring people together, utilize all of the different resources that were already present in Miami as a young ecosystem, which for many entrepreneurs like Michelle, just getting going, say, hey, look, I need more, I need to go someplace else. But Miami is this really unique place. And the stat that I always love to share about Miami, 54% of the population is born outside of the US, right? Not just from someplace else in the US, uniquely international. And that sort of dynamism results in lots of people coming to Miami, Marie being our latest and greatest example of someone really championing Miami. And that has resulted in people deciding, you know what, we can make this a place where we can build groundbreaking companies. Because the trends that we saw is, of course, is that the costs to create are going down, right? The ability to do is going up exponentially, and that's resulting in talent and funding becoming way more mobile. And all we've seen during the pandemic is that trend becoming even more accelerated. And so now it's really through connecting people. I think in so many ways that people, I think Marie, in Miami, it is almost these social connections. People feel part of a community, that they want to be in that place. And of course, it's through organizations. A young company wanting to raise funds, whether it's going to Miami Angels or going to Endeavor or going to 500, and being to navigate that, or as you mentioned, even working with the public sector. Ways to do that. And then ultimately, it's through that work, people identifying with that place and championing it.
Right.
And that's sort of the trajectory that we've seen in Miami. I think as we move forward over these next 10 years, it again presents an opportunity for Miami and Madrid, among other ecosystems, to really lock arms in some ways. For example, we may not have an opportunity to talk about it, but areas, for example, around sustainability and tech, which just being here this week, you can see Spain, Europe, so much far ahead on it, and it's a place that, one example, the place where Miami's done so much in healthcare and trade and logistics and banking and finance, and crypto, and right now, for example. But in thinking about sustainability as a place, that's an area where Miami can work.
And to that note, since Eyal will soon be in Miami, and as a logistics company, it's not just about more efficient and faster routes, but it's also saving on emissions. So there's definitely a sustainability play, and I'm sure you guys, once you're in Miami, can connect over that. So the pandemic changed a lot, and now we're talking about specific markets, but what it changed for all of us, I think, is we have Zoom calls, we have a lot of things that we do remotely. I'm curious to hear from the founders, in terms of fundraising and as well as building a company culture. Now, in different markets, being remote, having team members all over the place, how do you manage that? How do you make sure that you close the deal, let it be for fundraising or for customers, making sure you create that culture that is really specific to, let's say, Bopos? So any tips for people?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that we are a mostly remote company. We have offices in Madrid and Miami, and some people come to the office, but I would say like 70% of the people just work remotely. So what we usually do is we gather like every quarter at least in person to kind of foster that kind of culture of getting together and knowing each other, which is super important even if you work remotely. And in terms of fundraising, it's also interesting. I mean, fundraising right now or today is almost done almost completely by video calls and online. But you know, I got to realize after raising a couple of rounds that the impact that you make by just going to the VC's offices and meeting them in person and explaining what you're doing is a big game changer in terms of fundraising, because you know, I guess that there's a lot of nuances that you don't get from video calls. Obviously, what you're building is what you're building, and the metrics are the metrics, and the team has a track record, etc. But all these kind of little details of kind of personal interaction are very, very useful when you're thinking of closing a deal. In the end, VCs invest in your company, and they're going to be there, or they're going to be part of your cap table for the next 5, maybe 10 years.
Right.
So you want to make sure that there's also engagement with them.
So it's almost like online dating that stays online for a long time, right?
Kind of, yes. So yeah, from time to time you have to meet up, but that's how it
But
is.
in your case, it worked out, right? Because you recently, or not too long ago, successfully raised.
It worked out, yeah. We raised 30 million in late 2021. We're fundraising again now, and I can't tell much about that, but it's going to be more or less similar.
Amazing.
And it's working. In terms of the teams, they're interacting very well. We have a very asynchronous culture. We're using Slack. We're using Linear as a project management tool, and yeah, the team I mean, I guess that there's something special about our team as well. Many of us already knew each other before starting the company, and some of the people who joined the company knew team members from past experiences. So that also helped a lot. So I guess that if you hire junior employees, or if you hire people that you don't know, it might get harder. So as we scale, we will probably find these challenges. Right now we have a team of 20 people, and it's a very, very well-knit team, but we'll see.
Awesome. Michel, what about you? Like in terms of raising, finding customers, building a company culture?
Yeah. Well, in terms of raising during the pandemic, as everybody else was raising via Zoom, unfortunately, I haven't met over 80% of our investors. It's all been via Zoom calls.
Still to this date?
Still to this day, we have investors in California and Liechtenstein and UK, all over the place, and it's all been via Zoom. So the pandemic kind of opened or removed boundaries for startups as well, to go and have a FaceTime conversation in different time zones, different borders. So that, I think, accelerated the funding for some startups who are not particularly based in the US, but they can also reach US investors. My idea for remote is I think hybrid is better than full remote. That's my personal point of view, because there's this human element that you cannot remove. And early on, if you're fully remote, in our experience, we found that when you're a startup, things are already messy at the beginning, right? So a lack of processes can create friction and misalignment throughout the team if you have team members in different time zones or working fully remote. So I would say that if the path is going remote, I think that putting a minimum amount of processes in alignment throughout the team should be at the forefront of that.
And just to get an idea, how many people do you have right now?
Now we're about 60.
Okay.
60.
So yeah,
And
that
16
is,
different countries.
yeah, wow. So 60 people. Sorry, Matt. Yeah, you have.
No, I was just going to understand sort of the community person on the
Right.
on the panel here. I think what this opportunity underlines is the opportunity for each of the emerging ecosystems, like a Miami, like a Madrid, like a Barcelona. In that now that we sort of have a disconnect between job and place. That is, before you needed to be, wherever the job was that you wanted, you needed to be in that place. And now there's much more value in where you want to be, where you want to live, and that presents an opportunity for now, after all this work that different places have been doing to try and become viable ecosystems or really groundbreaking, innovative companies can be built. This presents an opportunity to have so many of those people in your community, and so many of the things we haven't thought about as much will now be so important, which is quality of life, a place that you want to be in. And with that, in 16 different countries, it's sort of all bets are off, as now the deck gets really reshuffled as we think about sort of the map of where the next generation of companies are built.
100%. Eyal, you already for years have had people in different markets. How many countries are you currently?
Yeah, we have offices in 7 countries.
In 7 countries, okay.
Yeah, but what happened with the pandemics in LATAM, we tend to be really local, right? So as I explained before, we started thinking about international, right? But we tended to be really local. So if we are in Chile, so we think like Chileans. If we're Argentina, think like Argentinian. So the pandemic pushes us, right? So okay, now let's think about international. So, and I agree with Matt, so okay, where I want to live, right? Maybe I don't want to live in Santiago, but I want to live in Miami, I want to live in different places, maybe in the same region. So we also, in the pandemic, what happened with us, we just raised, a week before the pandemic started in LATAM, we raised our Series A. So we were in the process of hiring people. So I think we are maybe 60, 17, right? People by Zoom.
By Zoom, wow.
Yeah. So I believe
yeah.
the main challenge there is the culture, right? So we have a lot of offices, right? And how you can transmit what we were really local in each office. So the office were a good place for us, right? So we meet each other, we have games, we have different stuff, so we can night of pizza, night of Unos, right? Games. So we lost a little bit all of that, right? So now it's the challenge, how to do it, how to recover it. And then I agree also with Michelle, right? I think the final solution is okay, it's a combination, right? So we need to meet once we are doing now offsite, right? So traveling much more, maybe less frequently, right? But okay, let's meet all the C-level. We need to go to offsite 3 days to a place to think about it and to talk about, okay? And when we did the last offsite, what we got for the teams, this was okay, amazing. I've been working with you for maybe 6 months, but I don't know you, right?
Yeah.
Now I understand you have family, you have kids, and now I know you as a person, right?
Right. So also getting to know everyone you work with as a person. Yeah. Awesome. So you were saying earlier that it still is a challenge for European founders to get a US investor. Is that because we saw Spain actually, and specifically Madrid, it was such a huge growth actually, compared to over the last month, kind of a slowdown in the global VC market. However, we see that most of this increase of VC is in early stage. So as you go into growth stage, I think the US investors are still more dominant. Especially for Michelle and Juan, I would like to know how you think about that. Is that something as a Spanish founder that as I progress, as I get into growth stage, I need to find that US investor, or are you working with local investors as well, because they are trying to get into the growth stage?
I guess that it depends a lot on your market, your target markets. I mean, we're a US company, our clients are in the US, so it feels so natural for us to try to find VCs from the US. You have so many companies that raise money from French VCs, from maybe not Spanish VCs, because as you said, they tend not to go that far in terms of stages. But you have a lot of French and Nordic VCs that are investing in European companies. So there's a kind of a healthy fundraising ecosystem in Europe too. But if you want to go to the US market, you definitely have to make your way out European VCs and try to add US VCs to your cap table. And for us, that's kind of a priority right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think similarly?
Yeah, well, I think both the US and Europe has some great investors, right? In our particular case, we're we're a US company and we're operating out of Spain as a subsidiary. So I think that for us, for the growth stage, perhaps we will tend to focus more on US investors. But I think that you can play both fields and leverage in a way that can benefit the company. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, as we're wrapping up, just one quick question, which I know I might throw you off right now, but I would love to know one thing that I can't find on Google from you. You were just saying, you know, it's important to get to know the people outside of the business side. So, Matt, I'll start with you. Anything that we can't find on Google?
One thing you can't find it. We always have that thing that we've sort of been working on the side and never really talked about that much. But you know, I went to college and I grew up in Boston, went to college in New Orleans, and there was this amazing musician named Professor Longhair, and started for, we're on like year 25 now, but have had this biography that I've been trying to write on him that's been sitting on the side. You cannot find that any place on Google, but maybe someday something way different than thinking about cities and communities and innovation and economic development. But maybe someday be able to find that on Google.
Awesome. Who wants to go next?
Yeah, well, maybe you can find it in Google. I don't
It's okay. If you find it on page 2 of the search result, it's
so
fine.
my team always, yeah, I was like the oldest guy in my team like for a long time, not anymore. So when one time I told them that I climbed not the Everest, I climbed the base camp Everest. Well, I like mountaineering, so they were, you climbed the like base camp now, it's impossible. Well, so I like climbing, and I climbed the base camp Everest. Hopefully one day I will climb at least like camp 1 or camp 2.
Wow. I'll get some tips from you.
Well, I don't have anything fun to share, but one thing that maybe you can't find on Google is that I was really into basketball in high school. And
Big Heat fan?
I love it. Huge Heat fan. And one cool thing is I was the MVP of my high school team 1 year. So I don't think you'll find that
In Miami.
in Miami.
In Miami. Okay, got it. Awesome.
Hey, we have to play one day, by the way. I'm a big basketball fan. I cycled 20 kilometers this morning to get to the South Summit. I'm a
No
very
way.
big fan of cycling. I guess that, you know, I spent 8 years at Cabify, so I guess that I like kind of clean mobility, and yeah, that's how I move around the city.
It doesn't get much cleaner than just cycling without anything. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone. We're super, I was honored to be on
What
stage
about
with you.
What's your answer?
Okay. So anything you can't find on Google. I'm originally from Bolivia, but was raised in Germany as an adopted child, the third out of 4 kids, and my siblings are all blonde with blue eyes. So I think that was like really the persistence and or perseverance that I needed to be a founder later on. So that's
Awesome.
awesome. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.